It's Sunday, July 17th, 2016, and this is the Product Mentor Talk. Today we are joined by one of our mentors, Jessica Fredican, Director of Product Management over at Run, to lead a talk on Wagile, being agile with waterfall clients. Allow me to briefly explain the format to those of you who might be joining us for the first time today. Along the bottom of your screen, you see mentors and mentees within the current session of the Product Mentor program. The Product Mentor is about pairing up mentors and mentees in the field of product management all around the world. We're in over 20 different countries all around the world, and it's about helping make better product managers and better products, and hopefully along the way some better product decisions as well. So we're going to quickly go around with some introductions. So we're going to start with Jessica, the mentee.
Hi, I'm Jessica Wade. I work at Town Square Media.
We can't hear you.
I'm talking loud. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you really hear me?
No.
I'm unmuted.
So Jessica, I'm sure, had a lot of things to say. And I might have to read her questions to you guys today. No.
We can hear you.
So we're going to now move on. She's a great mentee. Her mentor loves her. So now I'm going to go over to Furkan to introduce himself.
Okay, my name is Furkan. I'm a mentee in the current session, and I work for a company.
Hello?
Yes. Can you hear us?
It seems that Google Hangouts has something against our mentees today. I'm going to just do one quick sound check. Jessica, the mentor, could you just unmute yourself and speak for a sec?
Hey, I could hear them. I don't know.
There we go. There we go. We're good. We're good. I'm going to try this one more time. Jessica, the mentee, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. Jessica Wade. I work at Town Square Media. Mentee. Apparently my mentor really likes me, which is great because I love her. And yeah.
Furkan?
Okay, my name is Furkan. I'm a mentee in the current session. I work for a software company, Seamless Distribution Systems, which is headquartered in Stockholm. We make enterprise softwares for the telecom companies. And just to add up, this is 3 a.m. in the morning in my time zone. And because of this, the interesting topic, I mean, this is one of the main challenges that our company is facing right now. That's why I'm up this late at night. So looking forward to the talk.
Outstanding, outstanding. I love it. And I am Jeremy Horn, a.k.a. the product guy and the person having some technical difficulties with Google Hangout today. I think we've got them all fixed, though, at the moment. And I'll be moderating, so you'll have your questions coming in through the productmentor.com/live. Video on the top, and the questions are at the bottom. Keep the questions coming in. As long as they're relevant to the topic, I'll be feeding them along to Jessica in fairly real time, so we can all have a great conversation about today's topic of Wagile. But also, if you ask the more generic questions like, what is a product, or have you ever seen a product manager? If you ask questions like that, I'll pass them along, but I'll wait till the end of the talk for the more general sorts of questions. With all that said, let me hand it off to Jessica to tell you a little bit more about herself and then to begin the talk.
Sure, thanks. So I've been in product for about 8 years, and I've worked on a variety of different kinds of products. A lot of that are kind of blends of consumer-facing and enterprise products. And I've seen a lot of challenges with trying to be agile, and dealing with clients or executives who are used to working in a waterfall environment. So excited to talk to you guys about that today.
Yeah, take it away.
Oh, all right. So today, wanted to talk a little bit about what Agile is, how it works, and when you should use it. So I don't know if any of you guys have actually worked in a waterfall model It's something that is kind of fallen out of fashion and has been the way that not only software but a lot of different kinds of products have been traditionally developed, where they are really firm steps and kind of handoff processes. So you'll kind of start with requirements and then go into design, build implementation, test, deploy, etc. And this can be really challenging for product managers because it's not just kind of a methodology for how we deliver and how we work, but it can be really challenging for product owners because though you have a lot of accountability potentially for your product, you don't have a lot of ownership because traditionally in a waterfall model, there'll be someone who owns kind of requirement analysis. A lot of times they're called business analysts, and their work will start and end at a specific time, and then it'll be handed off to design, and the design will do their piece and hand off to implementation without a lot of conversation or collaboration between analysis teams and design teams and so on down the waterfall. So not only does this obviously lend itself to kind of a lack of collaboration and communication and holistic view of what a product could look like, but from a culture standpoint, I think it can lead to a lot of blaming of different teams as each team kind of sets up their piece and passes it off. And if they're late or if something isn't well set up for the next team or there isn't that holistic view, this can set up a culture that's kind of not really conducive to collaboration and to building out the best product. So Agile is a methodology that's kind of been viewed as more modern and a little more holistic, so that teams work together and there's kind of a core team that's working on a product, and they're really focused on working together and building things instead of phases and documentation. Making sure that you are collaborating with your team, making sure that you're able to respond to changes as they occur in your product development process, and not really allowing each of the separate kind of components of the team to start and finish. You know, once you have a set of requirements of things that you know you want to build out, the team can start working on that as other areas are fleshed out and not holding off the entire project for specific areas. And I think this is really important for building great products, because having all of your stakeholders in a room, or in a metaphorical room together working, allows product to have a more holistic view of their product, to have actual ownership over what's happening, instead of kind of phases off. But this doesn't always work for everybody. There are a few companies who are actually really successful at doing Agile. I think Agile can be really successful for startups that are building consumer-facing web products that have never really worked any other way. But a lot of companies now have executive teams that are used to have traditionally worked in a more waterfall method. And a lot of enterprise teams, which is really my main focus in Wagile, they have clients who are waterfall and have really different expectations, or they're building out products that don't really lend itself to doing things like continual releases, or releasing to kind of building out products that are kind of quickly changing. I've seen this with some of my clients that are, stop the share. I've seen this with clients who really want to take on Agile ideals, and they'll kind of do a lot of the ceremonies. They'll have stand-ups, but they'll kind of do them in a sort of crazy way. So I've had clients who wanted to do a stand-up with my account management team, but they'll do an hourly stand-up every day to check in on a project. Which is not it. That is, Agile is not supposed to you're not supposed to modify it, right? Pure Agile kind of trainers would say that you fall into pitfalls when you try to modify the system. But sometimes it doesn't really kind of fit the product that you are trying to build. So I think it's really important to also kind of think about your stakeholders as users. And as you think about kind of user-centered design, where you're trying to meet your users where they are and kind of not force them to go down a path, let them be kind of at the knowledge level with the product that they are, or kind of their comfort level, and allow them to use the product the way they will. I think it's really important to think about your stakeholders that way and kind of meeting them where they are. So if you have clients who work in a waterfall manner, to not force them to work in an agile way. Because your job is to build great products, and your job is not really to help your clients understand how to be agile. So Wagile is kind of a blend of Agile and Waterfall, and instead of just kind of taking the different pieces willy-nilly of Agile and Waterfall, it's a really conscious blending of these two methodologies for working. So kind of focusing on Agile ideals while understanding the reality of some of the necessities that brought Waterfall into place. So I think at its core, Wagile is defining a core internal team that will work in an agile way, and defining who your external stakeholders are that will meet some of the kind of waterfall pieces. So that internal team for you might look like your engineering team, your product owner, maybe marketing. For me, in my past experience, we've had a woman who did our technical documentation. So we kind of had this core team, QA, and you'll have your Scrum team, so to speak, and you'll work with them in an agile way. So you'll have your ceremonies, you'll include everyone in planning, etc. But then also identify your external stakeholders that are involved in very specific, kind of a very structured, specific touch points with the product and the product development process. So, for instance, with the technical documentation writer that I'd work with, she would come to planning with us and kind of sit in on understanding what the features are that were being developed, and being a stakeholder in planning has the opportunity to ask clarifying questions. And we would also meet with her on a sprint-by-sprint basis as she started to write up documentation for release notes and for the overarching documentation. But kind of the waterfall aspect of her role was also that kind of at the end of each release, as we put new code live, that she was responsible for this kind of mega documentation and help center. That's kind of traditionally what waterfall clients or waterfall methodologies will produce at the end of a piece of software, kind of a huge documentation about what it is and how it works. So we kind of internally work kind of sprint by sprint and making changes as we go along, and then having at the end kind of still a final release. So I think particularly with enterprise clients, that waterfall reality looks like defined releases, defined test periods, and defined planning periods as well. So I think kind of starting at the broadest view, thinking about what roadmaps look like in Wagile. Again, kind of with that internal and external paradigm, it's important to think about your internal roadmap and making sure you're doing all of the right processes there with reviewing your internal stakeholders. As you start to think about what's going to be important for your business, reviewing internally with engineering, with marketing, whoever is in your team, validating your roadmap there, and then setting yourself up for client road mapping reviews. So in the internal review, I think it's important to make sure you've got, make sure that you kind of have your plan over what your product view about where you guys need to be going, and then think about how to kind of pull out specific pieces of that you want to share with clients. So you have kind of a more directional roadmap that you share with stakeholders that's less detailed than what you're sharing with your internal clients. And I think to help you get there, to figure out how to kind of what should be shared with clients is partly based on client feedback about what they're looking to hear. And I think it's also really important to in that road mapping, do some high-level prioritizing and sizing of that work so that you can make sure that the roadmap that you're presenting to clients is reasonable and close to achievable. In my experience, road mapping with an external client view is challenging, that they'll see roadmaps really more as release plans. So it's important to kind of be directional and vague as much as possible, but really kind of committing to large themes or major feature sets that you can talk through with them. Tactically, I've used in the past a product called AHA that's been really helpful in kind of in managing this, where we can build out a visual roadmap of what we're planning to work on. But it has the ability to make only certain features externally viewable. So it's a really simple way to not have to manage multiple documents on what you guys are working on internally and kind of what you're externally displaying to clients. So going hand in hand with that, what I think delivery looks like is it's important to have a regular but flexible release schedule. Instead of being super lean and just kind of releasing features whenever you're ready, it's important to, in line with that roadmap, have a particular large feature set or theme of features that you'll release on a particular schedule. And so I say regular because I've found often that clients who are used to working waterfall are interested in having kind of being able to have their expectations met about regularity. So for a lot of folks who are moving into an Agile world, kind of the insecurity of knowing when things are going to be ready and that lack of definition can be really challenging. So I think having a regular schedule, whether that is something once a month or once a quarter, where there's a little bit of wiggle room to say exactly what that date will look like, but to have some expectations that there's going to be code released within a reasonable time period, and that something will be released. So I think also thinking about setting a theme or a defining feature set for that release is helpful for clients to not only feel that their feature or that a particular feature is releasing, but to make sure that you're allowing that to be as successful as possible. Integrations and kind of go-to-market, I think, are so key in a product and can really make or break the success of a product. Have seen a lot of releases go out that were not well pitched or well communicated to clients, and really invalidates the value of the release if there are integrations or communication about what the feature is and how it works. If those aren't super well defined, that can really negate the value of the work you've done with your team.
So we have a question that just came in from Hansa. They're asking, does a Wagile framework leave any space for lean experimentation when it comes to figuring out what a feature requirement is?
Yeah, and I think that can be done in a variety of different ways within Wagile. So in my experience with so I had worked in an environment where we were enterprise and our clients were really, really risk averse, and so putting code out in production was not an option for us. But we had the fortune of having a consumer site that we used for a lot of this experimentation about what's working and what's not. And I think also kind of a little bit of some of that validation can be done a little bit with customers themselves. And I think another option for that is to talk a little bit later about building out a client council. So having kind of a council of core clients that you work with can give you access to some of their users to kind of be a little bit more lean. What I've found too is that that's kind of a first step to building out, identifying kind of your more agile clients, those who are a little bit less risk averse, and have worked on setting up beta programs with clients that has sometimes resulted in kind of we'll knock off a percentage of their SaaS fees so that we can do some kind of a kind of more lean releasing to particular clients. So I think within this framework, there's always room to push the boundaries a little bit more, but kind of as kind of a main sort of overarching platform, it doesn't really allow you to be super lean with the majority of your clients, and there are workarounds for that with particular clients. Or I've also used this a lot in user testing too, to kind of try some things out and see what sticks.
All right. Another question from someone is this road mapping specific to Wagile? How is it different from Agile?
I think what's particular to Wagile is the kind of baking in the concept of releases in, and a particular engagement, and thinking about really that external and internal layers. I think you'll always have internal or external stakeholders, but I think with this methodology, it's really important to set a more directional roadmap than a particular kind of a more defined roadmap.
And the next question comes from Fredican. I'll hand it over to him for that.
Jessica, you talked about releases being flexible. What do you mean by that?
I mean, trying to avoid setting a particular date months in advance. So if your organization's doing quarterly releases, to avoid saying things like on the first of each month we'll do a release, so that you've got room to say we do releases generally in the middle of the quarter, and as we get closer to that date, we'll set an exact date.
Okay.
All right. So that's all the questions we have at the moment. Keep them coming in at theproductmentor.com/live. With that said, back to you, Jessica.
So, thinking about validation in Wagile, as we just kind of talked about, it's challenging to be lean, and with clients who are particularly risk averse, or where you're building out products for enterprises where this business generates real revenue for them. Doing product validation can be more challenging. And I think if we also think about product validation as validating with clients themselves, particularly for integration and business needs. So I think doing validation is at kind of a high level and at much more granular levels too. So I think one important way that this happens is making sure you're getting your roadmap out in front of clients at regular intervals. So if you do quarterly releases, revisiting that roadmap with them at least once a quarter. And it may not be with all of your clients. It may be with kind of a core council or directional group of clients that you work with that kind of lead in your industry or particularly key to your business. And making sure that they're aligned not only with kind of the feature sets there, but theme validation as well. Because your clients are often closer to the value that your software provides to them than you are. Your organization's focused on building software and they're focused on running their businesses. So having that conversation with them and being really thoughtful in listening to them and validating where they see the market going with where you've seen with other customers, and trying to kind of find a balance and really listen well about what the real asks are and what are particular to individual clients. What I've also found really successful is doing individual feature validation with clients. So have a deck of kind of a template for when you're working out features. I'm going to give them an overview of what it is, what it's going to be, what it's not going to be. Do this generally at a point where we have wires or maybe some kind of visionary designs on what this might look like. And I think it's really important here to talk through with any integration needs that a client might have. Because again, go-to-market is so important with clients, and if you're missing some key issues with integration with your clients, will really make or break the success of your release. And I think there's also opportunity for validation in user acceptance testing. So what I've found with our enterprise clients is that they generally want to do some acceptance testing, and I think that there's kind of trust issues that exist with a lot of enterprise clients who've had some less than stellar releases in the past. So I think clients being interested in doing end of release acceptance testing is fairly common, and I think it's an important opportunity to test out some things that are out there and get some feedback and make hard decisions about a release going out or not. I think also another really important area for product validation, regardless of methodology, is in the sales cycle itself. If you have the opportunity to get out with your sales team to hear what the market is saying, people who aren't yet using your product, what they're saying about what they like, what they don't like, to help identify areas that you guys could be moving into.
So I'm going to jump in. I've got another question from Furkan. Go for it.
Okay, so my next question is that how to fit requirements in release cycles when your B2B customers have already paid you to do something and expect it to be available as soon as possible? I mean, on demand.
I'm sorry, can you ask that one more time? I didn't quite get everything.
Okay, so the question is that how to fit requirements in release cycles when B2B customers have already paid you in advance to do something and they expect it to be done as soon as possible.
Yeah, so you're in a situation where you've got like a requirements doc that's come from clients and they have a timeline that they expect it to be done against?
Yes.
And there was a commitment date?
Sales always have a commitment.
Yeah.
So I mean, for example, there are different release philosophies. if they are doing releases on demand, for example. So once the requirements comes in, you build them and then you ship them. But what, how to get away from this philosophy towards more on the release cycles, and how to align the expectations of waterfall clients?
Yeah, so I think there's that transition is really challenging to get clients on a specific release schedule. It's easier, honestly, with new clients that come in. You can work with your sales and your legal team to make sure that contractually going forward, that clients build out, that there's this expectation set that we do releases on the schedule, and then your organization can make decisions about what to do about off-cycle releases. We've done this in the past where we've got our release cycle, right, and they take that and they get that for free, and that we bill them for anything off-cycle, but for us particularly, there was such a drain on that and impacted our ability to meet our other commitments, that we also we ultimately moved to a place where we would do kind of a major release every quarter, and would do interim bug fix releases monthly, and then we're working on getting that down to every sprint. We have the opportunity to do a bug fix release, so that anything that's shippable will go out, and that could include any client's custom work that was happening that needed to go out on top of that. But then again, there would still be, if there was custom work that was being built into kind of the custom development costs. But okay. Yeah, I mean, getting clients onto this methodology is really challenging, and it's a conversation that I think you'll need to lean on some of your account or your sales folks going forward to make sure that they're having the conversations with clients about why you guys need to move to this release and the impact that it has not only to your own business but to their business. I think it's been really successful to pitch this as, we really want to support your business, we really want to be here for the long haul to support you guys, but we have some particular needs that we need to adjust for a little bit to make sure that we can meet those commitments.
Great. And another question, this one from an anonymous individual. Are there any formal points in the roadmap where you would advise against pivots?
I don't know about any formal points, but I would say it's important to look at any change and identify, go through all of the right steps about identifying if this is worth a change, why we're doing this, etc. And really, I think the stopping point ultimately is about sizing. After you've identified whether or not this is something is actually worth pivoting for you guys, for whatever reason the pivot comes in. But since you've committed to particular releases at particular times, you want to be cautious about trying to stuff something in that won't fit. And this can be challenging with clients who want to come in and have kind of custom work done on an off-cycle release. But it can't impact the rest of your business. So I think I think that's something too that's important to kind of work through with clients to know that you guys have ultimately the right to defer work to a separate or to a second release, because it can be hard to say to clients, well, we need this a month in advance, because sometimes clients will come to you with things that might take 2 weeks or 3 months worth of work, and they don't really necessarily know that. So to have this particular kind of cutoff. But the way we've done this is to have, say, a change request come in and size that out and have that sizing agreed upon and say, okay, we can not take this amount of work on right now, and it will be deferred to the next release, which is, I think, a point of frustration for clients because they don't know ahead of time. But I think that's also part of kind of the importance of doing the roadmap reviews frequently and having a little bit of opportunity for for off-cycle releases. If that becomes important enough to them that they don't want to wait for the next release to build in the work to have that done kind of in the next release on a slower cycle.
All right, and the next question is from Marissa, and Marissa is asking, other than level and type of engagement in the tech dev, how does the role of product manager change from waterfall to agile processes?
I don't think that there's. Oh, so from waterfall to agile, how the role of product changes?
From waterfall to Wagile, sorry.
All right. Yeah, I think product operates much more agilely than in waterfall. I think because you've got a continuous engagement with all of your internal stakeholders, and so you have a lot more opportunity for ownership instead of just accountability, so that you're kind of involved with your design teams and you're involved with and maybe even doing some of the business analysis. I think traditionally in waterfall it's a little bit more hands-off and product is not as deeply integrated into processes as they are with Agile. So I think product will operate a much more agilely in Wagile than on the waterfall side. I think that where the W is in Wagile is really on setting external client expectations.
All right, so that's all the questions we have at the moment. Keep them coming in to the productmentor.com/live. And back to you, Jessica.
So we've touched on this a little bit, but kind of in that transition to waterfall, I think one area that it's really challenging but really important is to get your stakeholders uncomfortable with an uncertain reality. So there's a lot of frustration with waterfall that engineering is not hitting their dates, that vendors are not hitting their dates, because when you are building out software, right, it's really hard to know what is going to be needed, and it's really hard to know how much time things are going to take until you start really doing them. So I think having that conversation with stakeholders that you don't know what things are going to look like so far out in advance, and you won't really know what the scope of a project will look like until you've started working on it. So having this conversation with them that you're not going to be able to tell them upfront a specific date, but then following that up with this very structured process for them, so that you can say to them, we don't know, we don't have an exact date for this, but what we can tell you is that we're going to release code every quarter, and we are making a commitment to a specific theme of work or a large feature set that we're going to deliver every release. And doing a lot of Agile education is important, I think, to helping clients really understand not only the particular ceremonies and kind of processes for working in an Agile environment, but to really change the culture of how you work with clients. So having that constant communication with them as much as possible, working with your other external teams, people who may be internal to your organization but have not traditionally been part of the full life cycle of a product. I think starting with that collaboration with all of your teams and building a culture where product really serves as the hub of all of the different spokes in the product development wheel. I found that people are super responsive and really much more willing to work with you and deal with some of the uncertainties and with some of the kind of areas that don't go super well. And I think it's also really important to be cognizant of ships not turning on a dime, right? That this process to move clients from being really waterfall or from really custom work where they're used to having their own requirements that they'll build out and will be released on their own time, that it's going to be a little bit of a process to move that along. So the expectation that this will happen quickly or that you can just suddenly impose a new process on your clients is not super realistic. But I think the important thing is just to stay focused on that release, kind of that transition, and understand that it'll take a bit of time. Here's the end of the deck.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Cool. So then I just want to, we don't have any other questions for Jessica, but I want to thank our speaker, Jessica Fredican, Director of Product Management over at Run, for today's discussion of Wagile, being agile with waterfall clients. And as always, the presentation will be posted up on our SlideShare channel very shortly. And a big thank you from me, Jeremy Horn, the product guy, to everyone else who joined us today on the Product Mentor. And don't forget, if you're interested in being a product mentor like today's speaker, Jessica, to people of all sorts all around the world, visit theproductmentor.com and sign up today. Session 6 starts on January 8th, and we're always looking for more mentors. And also, if you're looking to fill a new product job with a great product person, visit our very own free-for-all job board at theproductjobs.com. With all that said, everyone, thank you for coming, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.